Painful nights all sound the same, a dense silence opening upward like a breach. That's where hopes, fears, and promises gather. For centuries, in the face of the unexpected or of suffering, human beings have lifted their gaze, spoken words, made requests. It's an ancient gesture, repeated billions of times, as if there were truly someone listening. A ritual that crosses cultures and generations, so deeply rooted that it seems woven into human nature itself. But what happens if that sky, the one people have spoken to their entire lives, is silent? What if that gesture, so instinctive and familiar, has no effect at all? What if praying is, in essence, like talking to a wall? The thought hurts. It's unsettling, almost unbearable. And yet, at the heart of Western philosophy, there's a thinker who dared to push this idea to its ultimate consequences with unflinching logic, without cynicism, but also without comforting illusions. Baruch Spinoza. His argument isn't driven by hatred of religion or by intellectual provocation. It's the inevitable deduction that arises from his conception of God. A God who is not a capricious ruler sitting on a heavenly throne, but the totality of reality itself, the infinite substance expressed through everything that exists. Within this vision, there's no room for a God who changes his mind, listens to pleas, or intervenes to redirect the course of events. For Spinoza, a God like that would be imperfect, inconsistent, human. And God, by definition, cannot be that. To pray is to take three things for granted. First, that God can change what happens. Second, that human requests can influence him. Third, that God can alter what he had already set based on some new information received through prayer. But each of these assumptions, when examined closely, undermines the very notion of divine perfection. If God can change the course of events, then the original plan wasn't perfect. It's like saying an impeccable architect must constantly return to his blueprints to fix them. If God can be influenced, then he was previously unsure, hesitating, waiting for outside advice. But what kind of perfection needs guidance? And if he changes his mind, it means he was wrong before or is wrong now. In both cases, the divine ceases to be what it's claimed to be: perfect, omniscient, unchanging. Spinoza completely overturns the traditional religious perspective. Instead of imagining a God as an enhanced human, endowed with will, emotions, and decisions, he identifies God with nature itself. Not a personal being, but an infinite reality governed by necessary, immutable, universal laws. In this view, prayer becomes a logical contradiction. It's not about denying God's existence, but asserting that if God exists as absolute perfection, then he cannot act like a ruler who changes plans at human whim. An example makes the point clear. Believing that prayer can alter reality is like thinking you can change how a flawlessly programmed computer works just by talking to the screen. If the program has no errors, there's nothing to modify. Likewise, a perfect God doesn't need to keep adjusting his code to match individual requests. The natural order is already complete. And yet, behind the act of praying lies not only a logical mistake, but also a powerful psychological assumption: the belief that what one desires is truly what is good. Those who pray begin with the conviction that what they ask for is right, necessary, beneficial. Where does that certainty come from? Personal and collective history is full of desires that once fulfilled, turned out to be catastrophic. Those who pray for victory, wealth, or fame often fail to see the real consequences of what they ask for. Even if a personal God existed, why would he let himself be guided by limited and often naive desires? Religions have built around prayer an intricate structure of power, presenting a God who listens, rewards, or punishes, depending on human behavior, means exerting deep control over people's consciences. If the good or bad in one's life depends on a supreme judge who evaluates prayers, then it becomes convenient to conform to the rules set by those who claim to represent him on earth. It's a simple and ancient mechanism, the same used with children. If you're good, you'll get the gift. But just like with Santa Claus, there comes a moment when the illusion cracks. Spinoza's strength lies in how mercilessly he tears away that veil. Prayer doesn't change the order of the world. It doesn't move events. It doesn't bend reality to some external will. Not because reality is meaningless, but because it's governed by necessary laws that allow no exceptions. Every event is the result of a chain of natural causes. If an apple falls, it's not because a deity decided on that exact moment, but because gravity, the ripeness of the fruit, and other conditions made it inevitable. If someone passes an exam, it's because of preparation, ability, and favorable circumstances. There's no space for miraculous intervention. What people interpret as a miracle is, for Spinoza, simply ignorance. As long as the causes of a phenomenon remain unknown, the idea of divine intervention is invoked to explain it. When knowledge advances, the miracle disappears. This happened with eclipses, once feared as divine omens and now understood as perfectly predictable astronomical events. Every step forward in science is a step back from the realm of miracles. Another factor that fuels belief in prayer is the psychological mechanism of confirmation bias. When a request seems answered, it's taken as proof of prayer's power. When it isn't, a justification is found that leaves the belief untouched. In both cases, the conviction grows stronger. It's the same pattern as a gambler who remembers only the wins and forgets the losses. Spinoza doesn't call for resignation, but for clarity. If praying is useless, it doesn't mean human beings are powerless. It means their power doesn't lie in pleading with an external force, but in understanding the laws that govern reality and acting in harmony with them. It's not despair, but responsibility. Knowledge and deliberate action become the true alternatives to prayer. Faced with a problem, instead of waiting for help from above, one investigates causes, understands mechanisms, and acts. It's a harder path because it demands effort, study, courage, but it's the only truly effective one. Prayer is easy. Just ask. Understanding and acting is hard, but real. From this perspective, freedom isn't the illusion of bending the universe with words, but the ability to consciously move within its necessary order. To know is to stop crashing into the invisible walls of ignorance. It means recognizing what can be changed and what cannot, and focusing one's energy only on what truly falls within the human sphere of action. It's like learning the rules of a complex game. As long as they remain unknown, every move is random and frustrating. Once they're understood, the game becomes clear, and one can finally play. Spinoza calls this state beatitude, a deep joy that arises from understanding reality and living in harmony with it. It's not a shallow or fleeting joy, but a peace rooted in awareness. When one stops demanding that the world conform to personal desires and starts understanding it as it is, frustration dissolves and gives way to a steadier kind of strength. In this vision, God isn't an ear listening to prayers, but the totality itself, in which every human being is immersed. There's no need to ask something of an external entity that's already part of the structure of reality. Humans aren't beggars before a throne, they're manifestations of that same divine substance. Understanding this means moving from spiritual childhood to maturity. It's an uncomfortable position, especially for those raised in environments where prayer was the key to everything. Breaking that pattern can feel like stepping into a void, a collapse of certainties. But it's precisely in that fracture that a new space opens up. The space of real responsibility, authentic freedom, and liberating knowledge. In our time, when millions still cast their hopes toward a silent sky, Spinoza's lesson remains explosive. It doesn't urge contempt for the spiritual dimension, but a radical rethinking of it. Not a God who listens and intervenes, but a reality to be understood and traversed. Not supplication, but intelligence. Not dependency, but active participation in what is. Prayer doesn't bend the world. It may express need, offer comfort, or share hope. But when it comes to real effects, Spinoza leaves no room for ambiguity. The universe follows its laws and doesn't stop to listen. And paradoxically, in this realization, there's a deeper form of freedom. Because when one stops waiting for external interventions, one can finally begin to act.